come on in. Just give everyone a second to connect. Lovely. Hopefully everybody had a nice break. I hope everyone got a drink of water. I know I was a little bit dehydrated, so I've had a big drink. And welcome to our next debate. I'm going to do a quick acknowledgement of country, and then I'm going to introduce our speaker. It's not me anymore, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, to be honest. And then we will get started in just a moment. So before we do, I want to acknowledge country. So for me, that's Bunwarang land. I want to acknowledge Bunwarang elders past, present, and emerging. And I want to extend those respects, and I hope you'll join me in that, to the elders of the land that each of you are occupying at the moment. And I also want to acknowledge that all of us are on sovereign Aboriginal land. I would also like to further those respects to any First Nations people who might be joining us either in our debate or through our virtual gallery in our live stream. Beautiful. So, Danny, I might throw to you if you would just like to introduce yourself to our parliamentarians.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone in the Youth Parliament, and congratulations on taking this on. It's a shame that we're doing it this way via Zoom, but it's no doubt a great experience. I know a number of people from my area who've done it over the years and keep coming back because they enjoy it so much. Speaking of which, my area, so I'm the member for Gippsland South, which takes in all of South Gippsland Shire and about 60% of Wellington Shire. Ironically enough, Sale is the main town, which is where I am at the moment, and it's nowhere near, certainly wouldn't be called South Gippsland, but it is the main town in Gippsland South. And I'm coming to you from Gunai-Kurnai country, but parts of Gippsland South take in a bit of Bunwarang country as well. So I'm been an MP, member for Gippsland South since a by-election in 2015, so 6 years, but also had a year in the upper house as a member for Eastern Victoria region before that. Prior to that, my career background, I'm a journalist by trade, started here at the Gippsland Times newspaper and worked mostly around regional Victoria with Win TV and Southern Cross TV, but then went into politics as well, worked for the Leader of the Nationals, worked in Canberra, did various jobs in mostly in rural industries, including a stint as CEO of the National Irrigators Council, and had a couple of years in Jakarta, Indonesia, where my wife was posted as a diplomat, and I spent a year in the embassy working on trade and agriculture issues there as well. So fairly extensive experience around the world, but very happy as the member for Gippsland South now, and looking forward to this debate. I'm interested in what some of the debate will be on this particular topic, because there's a link there to another issue that's been a bit controversial over recent years, and I wonder whether that will be brought up. So looking forward to it, everybody.
Thanks very much, Danny, and we are really grateful to have you here with us. Sarah, can I throw to you?
You can. The next order of the day, everybody, is the Controlled Areas for Recreational Hooning Bill 2021.
I call on the sponsor of the bill.
Speaker, the Honourable Member Gavelis. I move to introduce a bill titled Controlled Areas for Recreational Hooning 2021. Sorry, 2 seconds. Okay. Speaker, the Honourable Member Gavelis. Firstly, I'd like to advise that this speech will discuss death and road trauma. It may be challenging or triggering for some people. If you feel concerned about the content, youth parliamentarians and members of the gallery are encouraged to step out or mute volume and return in a few minutes' time. Speaker, 161 Victorians have tragically lost their lives so far in 2021. This statistic has increased by 5.9% from 2020. Just think about that. We have been in lockdown for sadly a big portion of 2021 and still are, and yet we have this many people dying on our roads. In 2012 alone, 282 Victorians died on our roads due to speed being a major factor in car accidents, according to the TAC. As you can see, Mr. Speaker, speeding and reckless driving have cost the lives of so many innocent Victorians. We have adopted countless methods over the years combating the issue of hooning on our roads. These methods included the TAC campaigns and the Anti-Hoon Laws Act of 2006. These traditional methods we have used have proved to be successful in areas. However, the problem of reckless driving is still a big issue in this state and will always be. Therefore, we need to take a different approach to not only reduce reckless drivers on our roads, but also make safer drives as well. This bill will support the TAC's Towards Zero campaign, as it will be working with the TAC to bring awareness to the issues of reckless driving and the dangers of it on our roads. Therefore, we need to bring these reckless drivers to conduct their behaviour in a safe, regulated and controlled area. We have skate parks to reduce skateboarders from running over pedestrians on our footpaths. And we have injecting rooms for heroin addicts, which both provide safety for the users and for our community. Both these solutions have one thing in common, Mr. Speaker. They accept that these issues won't go away and find methods to ensure that these people who conduct these behaviours are safe, and at the same time, the community is kept safe as well. Australia is a country built on burnouts and big V8s. We need to accept this behaviour. We need to accept this culture, as we had a thriving automotive industry in this country, with Ford being in Broadmeadows and Holden in Port Melbourne. Although these car manufacturers have left this country, the love and passion for cars that so many Victorians share is still alive and stronger than ever. Although we might not fully understand the appeal of hooning and why people might conduct these behaviours, we need to put our naivety to the side and accept that this hooning culture is not going away. And we are not going to win the war against hooning. We instead need to teach these enthusiasts who do hooning the dangers of it and how they can become safer drivers, as the Honourable Member Knott will further explain. If we can embrace a new type of thinking in taking a different angle to this issue that too many Victorians can relate to, we can be a leading example to not only the nation, but also to the globe as well, as we will be the first state to make our roads safer and reducing the fatalities of innocent people dying as either pedestrians or as road trauma victims being affected by reckless driving. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Member, and apologies, I didn't actually get to move the question at the start of this debate, but we're away anyway, so I've now got my buttons under control. I would now like to call the next speaker.
Speaker, the Honourable Member Vernon. The people of this state trust the government to make smart and safe choices for the people of Victoria. This bill, however, is not safe nor smart. The opposition will argue that this bill is important. They will argue that this bill will be beneficial for the state of Victoria. The answer, quite simply, is that it is not. Regardless of the poor return Overnewton has proposed for safety, there is never a way to assure someone's safety. I will use a personal reference, with my mother being a victim of people hooning. They quote that they were being safe. Nevertheless, this bill is basically allowing reckless endangerment to become legal. When you allow P-platers who statistically have the highest rate of casualties and injuries on the road, put together young adults who just want to show off, I can assure you that those statistics will unfortunately go up heavily. Clause 1, Section A outlines the purpose of this bill to legalise hoon and stunt driving. But Clause 3, they define stunt and hoon driving as quote-unquote high risk. So why on earth would the government want to put the lives of people at risk? The lack of proper definitions as well makes this bill highly questionable, as the Honourable Member Clay will also go into. Instead, why are we not even acknowledging racetracks? Racetracks educate you. You go through so much prep and theory. At least on a racetrack, everyone is going the right way and everyone has a proper safety gear and the knowledge to be there. The responsibilities and the duty of care that the government has, This bill would oppose every single thing that government is for. Countless lives are lost a year due to hooning. And I ask the opposition, why did they come up with such poor attempts to come up with safety measures with just having either a seatbelt or a safety harness, when more safety measures must be put into place? They quote theory, but I've never met a person that regularly hoons enjoys the idea of theory. Never have, and honestly, never think I never will. Hooning is a case of showing off. It always has, and it always will be. No person who wants to show off is going to buy a chemical incinerator, is going to buy extra safety harnesses, is going to buy and spend the money on theory and prac. To quote unquote, as the honourable member who first opened this debate, be leading in encouraging safe driving in the nation, but encourages hooning? That's a bit of a contradictory statement. This bill should not pass at the incredible risk and threat this poses to the people of Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member Vernon. We will continue on and go to the next speaker.
Speaker, the Honourable Member Nicol. With the creation of the VRSHDO, Victorian Recreational Stunt and Hooning Driving Organisation, our bill sees to the creation of safe driving facilities. This would provide an outlet for these hoon drivers to get them off the roads. By recruiting members of medical and safety fields, our bills would establish that these areas of regulated hooning away from civilians. Drivers wanting to participate in this practice must complete mandatory training. This training will include how to safely execute their stunts and as well be embedded with preventative measures to avoid any potential accidents that could happen. Once this training is complete, as well as safety checks, drivers can then hoon to their heart's content, knowing that they are safe in these areas. Involvement in these areas we hope to increase, as it is an outlet that guarantees their safety as well as others in their neighbourhood. Our bill anticipates that these facilities will be filled with people who have a common passion for cars. That's what hoon drivers are. As we are utilising regulating time blocks for safety, those who are waiting for their turn in the hooning will be watching and getting excited and having an increase of passion for the act. And once it's out of their system, they have safely practiced their stunts and have kept everyone in the community safe. Although we can't get rid of hooning outright, we hope that the inclusion of these facilities proves beneficial in decreasing the road toll and making everyone, including these drivers, safe. There will be these practices for safety, as mentioned by the member of the opposition. Those are in our bill. Thank you.
Thank you, the Honourable Member Nicol. We'll go to our next speaker.
Speaker, the Honourable Member Villette. In the opposition's bill, it fails to mention that the vehicles being used will probably be everyday cars not made for hooning. This will damage the vehicles. When it says in the bill in clause 6.3, I quote, "When leaving the facility, the vehicle will be examined to ensure if it is roadworthy," end of quote. This is ironic, as very few vehicles will be able to leave the premises as they will all be damaged. Everyone associates the smell of burning rubber with hooning for a good reason. Can you imagine how much that will cost to replace those tires? Moreover, I doubt anyone will be willing to fork out so much money just to buy a separate car specific for hooning, as they cost in the thousands. People who generally drive are young adults with not much income, and this will cause them to spend money on needless activities when they could be saving up for university. Furthermore, the bill does not mention dirt bikes. These have been causing havoc recently in North and West Melbourne, causing lives to be at risk to those driving the dirt bikes as well as to the passerbys. Legalizing this activity will be extremely dangerous, as it is very easy for people to get overpowered powered by their dirt bikes and quads if they are being driven in an erratic fashion. This bill is talking poppycock. It is just a band-aid fix to the problem. Fellow parliamentarians, may I leave you with this one thought. Change the activity, not the location. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member Villette. Very passionately argued, and I will now pass back to the next speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member Not. Now, the opposition and many other people seem to have the misconception that these recreational hooning facilities will just let people hoon about uncontrollably like they would in the streets. This is false, and we will have stipulated many rules and regulations that drivers will have to follow to enter these locations. These rules will be created by the previously mentioned Victorian Recreational Stunt and Hoon Driving Board, the VRSHDO, if you will. This will manage the recreational hooning locations. For example, rules they may create will that the driver will have the need for a fire extinguisher in their car while on site. And there must be medical crews on site as well to assist the drivers in case of an emergency. Drivers will also have to go through many rigorous training programs that are both theoretical and practical. This will prepare them to enter these locations and hoon safely, making them safer drivers in the process. It is a win-win. There is no possible downside. While we do want them to have fun on the track, safety will not be sacrificed for this fun, and drivers will be held accountable to their actions and will sign a high-risk activity liability waiver before being allowed to participate. Drivers will be responsible for their actions, and if they break the rules, they will be fined for first-time offences and banned for repeated offences. This bill was also created so people that want to hoon can do it safely in controlled locations. And with the training program, I'm confident that participating drivers will come out more experienced than before, making the roads safer overall. And also, drivers may want to bring separate pairs of tires so that the ones they hoon in will be used up while they'll have another pair that take them home. Thank you.
Order. Thank you, Honourable Member Knott. Well timed. And I'll move to the next speaker.
Speaker, the Honourable Member O'Connell. With one glance at the opposition's accountabilities and opening speech, can I firstly state that the safety of our people is the most important job. We need to keep people safe. And I cannot stand to accept the culture of putting people's lives in danger in a legal or illegal way. This bill completely ignores the current driving laws, and the Vic Roads Association has already requirements to drive, including various tests to prove drivers are worthy of their licence. So this bill would completely undermine this and, in essence, give reckless drivers the legalities to potentially hurt and disfigure themselves and others. And as the opposition has stated, they provide training for this. How can this bill be considered at all a safe place for people to hoon if they're required to sign a waiver before partaking? This is not safe, and the organisation will not be to blame if people get hurt due to the waiver. I thought the training is supposed to shield people from danger, but the waiver suggests otherwise. It also needs to be highlighted that for hooning in general, there are many repercussions, such as monetary fines, also with accountabilities going as far as imposing the sanction of imprisonment, which not only deters individuals from hooning itself, but also is proven to reduce recidivism rates. Legalising what once was considered a legal activity would contribute to higher recidivism rates, and instead of deter, encourage people to partake in reckless driving in and out of this so-called organisation, causing an outrage in society if people take this bill as a chance to hoon on our roads and cause immense pain to themselves and others. Not to mention the significant repercussions this will have on our government if we let this go south. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member O'Connell. Exquisite timing, well presented, and move to the next speaker.
Speaker, Honourable Member Karamoshes, in order to make sure that recreational hooning areas will become successful and safe, we have understood that it is most important that a trial program is conducted. When discussing this trial program, it is important to remember that we want to make sure that this does become successful. Keeping this in mind, the trial program will be completed for a 6-month period with a group of participants who are interested in hooning or who have been fined for hooning on public roads. During this time, the trial will be held at a temporary facility that will mimic the potential area that the recreational hooning would take place if the trial were to be successful. It is important that the type of environment is tested to make sure that it meets all the necessary requirements to fulfill the safety of people who are interested in being involved, as well as ensuring the appropriateness for the participants who will be using it. After trialing the facility 6 months post this period, this will be where participants' road behaviours will be monitored with discontinuing the use of the facility. The monitoring will be seen through a self-report as to whether they believe their behaviour has improved, as well as the number of fines they have received. It is important to view that by having recreational areas for people to be able to hoon, we believe that it will decrease road accidents and potentially road tolls. By having access to safe areas to complete their impulsive behaviours, using evidence-based studies through recording the behaviour of participants, it will be able to show the effectiveness of having controlled areas for recreational hooning. We do understand that it is a lengthy process and will take much time and effort to be able to change the behaviours and views of participants. However, we recognise that being able to do so will provide a safer and more secure environment for individuals. Thank you.
Order. The honourable member's time has expired. I move to the next speaker.
Speaker, the Honourable Member Clay. Looking at the definitions for the opposition, they clearly outline the fact that hooning and stunt driving are high-risk activities. Why would anyone wish to make such reckless and dangerous activities legal in some form of safe space? It is an offence to drive a vehicle in a cumulatively negligent manner, reckless or dangerous speeds, where at the driving result, a person's death is outlined in 9A, Section 1 of the Criminal Law Consolidation Act of 1935. Are we really seriously taking the opposition's claim seriously to create a legal safe haven for these acts? Our roads are already dangerous enough, with 1,195 deaths on Australian roads in 2020. Surely the opposition realises that creating these safe spaces for such hazardous activities would only encourage citizens to take these activities up on our streets. I fail to see how creating a safe space for hooning will reduce death and won't simply move these accidents into these spaces. And where is the opposition's evidence that these spaces will in fact reduce casualties? Why give up the battle for road safety to move to making such a hazardous place? No one is going to drive 25 kilometres away from a residential area to Hoon that could take forever to get to, and rural areas are already in dangerous landscapes. So I yield my time.
Order. Is the honourable member completed? Finished? Okay, we will move then to the next speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member Morello. Creating recreational hooning centres will provide a fantastic economic investment to Victoria and the tourism industry. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic and social trends, all of Victoria is undergoing an economic downturn, especially within the tourism industry. According to the state government, Victorian tourism was worth only $9.8 billion in March 2021, a 69% decline from what it was in 2019 to 2020 at $23.4 billion. Enter recreational hooning. Since the Victorian recreational stunt and hooning driving facilities will be located in many less developed areas of Melbourne, such as Mildura, Hume, Brimbank, and Frankston, as well as regional Victoria, many motoring or hooning enthusiasts will be going to these areas as well. These people will likely visit rural towns on the way, whether that be to shop at a local business or eat at a local pub, cafe, or bakery. This hooning tourism could provide crucial economic investment to these struggling areas. And what's better, it would be all year round. And while yes, some members of the community might make noise complaints, I would argue that the economic advantages far outweigh these minor criticisms. At the same time, hooning facilities could become massive job creators for Victorian communities, as these facilities will need to recruit local staff to clean and maintain them. And of course, many people will also start up food stands or merchandise stores in the facilities as well. Finally, all hooning facilities will be built in old, decommissioned fossil fuel plants, recuperating lost jobs and expenditure in these areas. Overall, these recreational hooning facilities will create much needed economic investment and job opportunities to Victorian communities and the tourism industry. I would also like to make the point that we cannot beat the war on hooning, and continuing to fight these measures using the measures we're doing is not working, and it will not work. What we are essentially, thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member Morello. And I have, I think, a few more speakers. I move to the next speaker. You're still on mute, Honourable Member. There we go.
Honourable Member Michael. To get Hooners off the streets and prove a safe area to race, could use an old racetrack or build a new one. This would bring money and jobs to an area, lower car accidents. Areas would have quick access to emergency fields such as fire and less accidents. Drug and alcohol testing before you would cut down on accidents. Teach responsible driving and lower the community accidents due to hooning driving, living areas. Lower police and ambulance call-outs, lower court and prison stream codes because of less legal hooning. Chance of expressing and car management for future jobs.
Order, thank you. I think we have two more speakers, so I move now to the next speaker.
Just before I start, I do want to give a quick warning that my speech will touch on car-related accidents. So if anyone needs a second to just mute themselves, go for a bit, that's all right. If speaker doesn't mind starting now, will be good, or?
Thank you. Yes, I think that it's a good warning, and please proceed.
Speaker, the Honourable Member Agar. As stated in our bill, we will have members of the force in the board. This will allow the number of officers needed to lower and be distributed for better use elsewhere. In the past few months, countless articles and videos have come out in relation to arrests and raids due to hooning. This behaviour that is deeply engraved in modern Australian culture, and it's clear that it is something that will not be removed nor stopping anytime soon. Fines and imprisonment aren't scaring hooners off, and I think it's a clear sign that they will do what it takes to participate in what they consider to be a lifestyle. This also goes for car and disposable operations. It is stated by a recent release from the Herald Sun that police are confiscating hoon cars across Victoria at a rate of 18 a day, and an officer warned that police are crashing them at a rate of about 20 every week, making it clear that the current lockdown-like and harsh punishment method is not working. This will also lessen cars from any possible accidents on our streets, both those in relation to cars crashing into property or the living, as these places will be further on from our residential areas. It will also give us a chance to use taxpayers' monies towards more important things than road reparations as a result of hooning activities. Numerous news outlets have taken note on how hooning has negatively affected the community, yet the responses are surprising. Many comments are repetitive, stating that the police only do this for more money, less work, and how we are more criminals, more fines, and they are more money. Whilst we know that this isn't true, the overwhelming number of negative comments left by the community who are willing to debate for hooning are showing their crumbling trust for politicians such as Dan Andrews, who has been called out by name numerous times in emergency services like the police. I've seen it with my own eyes at school and in broad daylight, and I know many have as well. It's also in night during the streets. These people and us are being affected by those being on our roads and not in a controlled environment. This is a desperate call for change, which we desperately need.
Excellent timing. Thank you, Honourable Member. I think we have our final speaker for the government, and I give that speaker the call now.
Speaker, Honourable Member St. Pierre. I wonder if any of the sponsors here were told not to do something, perhaps by their mothers or another figure of authority, but did it anyway. Why do criminals commit a crime while knowing it's fully illegal? Sometimes it's emotions, sure, but other times it's for fun. Hooning in itself is something that people take part of because it's fun, and they generally do it because they're reckless. When you learn a habit, you usually keep it going. The theory component of the program would be a disaster, simply because it would be underwhelming. Not many people care to hear about being thought out to drive, especially if they consider dangerous driving as an option. Here's an example. Someone decides to steal a watch from a store. Will they listen to someone telling them not to 3 days ago? Most likely not, because that is not a current threat to them. The section is simply not solid enough to be effective nowadays. Plus, with all the steps required, all the possible paperwork and the tests that you have to take before accessing it, the slightest positives would not even be accessible for the general population. Practically, however, it could be a good idea indeed to have a safe practice of hooning. Something lingers in my mind though. Isn't hooning the reckless and dangerous practice of driving? So can it really be considered hooning? Or could it release the same amount of pleasure without a risk component? The answer is that no, it cannot. And all of this was considering a safe environment. If it is not a safe location, then it would simply be dangerous. No simulation or test can accurately describe the situation of randomness that a road may have. We are unpredictable, and this means one thing. The practical aspect of this section is too flawed to also be functional. Thank you.
Thank you. That is our final speaker from the government and opposition, but the floor is now open to anybody else who would like to contribute. So if there are other speakers, the task force will pick you and allow you the opportunity to have another say, or have a say. Are there any other speakers?
Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Member Gavelos, I'd like to read the right of reply. As you can see, this bill has taken a different and progressive approach to an issue that too many Victorians can relate to. We need to stop taking a conservative approach, as these conservative approaches are really not working. The opposition have stated the blatant fact that this issue of hooning is not leaving our society. We need to understand that our motoring culture in this country, let alone our state, is too big to stop. We need to accept this behaviour as an issue and use progressive measures that adapt to this issue.
Order. Order. I think we may have jumped in there, honourable member. There is, I think, a right of reply,
May I speak?
and I'm looking for advice from the task force, but
I was just reading the right of reply.
Yeah, I think we should. There are other speakers that wish to speak. So, honourable member Pararik, I'm happy to give you the floor.
Thank you. Speaker, Honourable Member Puri. This bill, while encouraging youths to perform movie-like behaviour, seems to overlook the point that hooning, regardless of it being done in a safe space, is still dangerous and reckless. In fact, how can we be assured that hooning done in the so-called safe space will not endanger other drivers on the premises? Clause 5 does not even mention a simple blood alcohol content check, or checking whether the driver has taken illicit substances before entering the premises. So how exactly can we make sure this reckless driving is fully protected from variables such as drink driving? Victoria already has a high fatality rate when it comes to drink driving, as 1 in 5 drivers are killed due to the blood alcohol content over 0.05. Drugs, most commonly stimulants, which includes cocaine, ecstasy, and depressant, which are alcohol, nicotine, are behind the highest number of deaths. Not to get all medical here, but depressants calm the body, reducing the motor and cognitive skills. Skills that are necessary when performing a task such as driving. Especially if this bill promotes safe hooning, then these skills, these motor and cognitive skills, needs to have a higher control. Even the Victorian Recreational Stunt and Hooning Driving Organisation, a body that is composed of all these ministers and departments, have no mention of these rules. And yet the most necessary and important rule of it all, which should be mandatory breath testing and drug tests, is not even shown in this entire bill. Conclusively, the bill, once again, only promoting stunt-like behaviors, has failed to view this objectively, which is to truly ensure protection of hooners. There must be a drug or breath test of some sort. Thank you.
Thank you. The Speaker has regained control of the Parliament after losing it. I apologise. But are there any further speakers who would like to add to the debate before we go to summing up? Yes, I remember. Please
Speaker, the Honourable Member, no. I'd like to mention that I am refuting this bill, so I'm not sure if we want to go through with this. I'd also like to mention a trigger warning, as I will be mentioning alcohol consumption and reckless driving in this speech. So if anyone feels uncomfortable, please feel free to meet me and return when I'm finished in a few minutes. All good?
Please go ahead.
Speaker, I'd like to draw the comparison between alcohol, the legalization of alcohol, and the legalization of hooning. We have already legalized alcohol, but yet with all these rules and safe measures put in place, there are still people who circumvent the rules daily and still do it illegally. Just because there are set places for this activity to take place doesn't mean that these people will partake in this activity in these safe places. So how can we guarantee that hooners will abide to these rules? These hooners are already trying to break the rules. So what makes the chamber believe that they will follow the rules just because it's quote unquote legalized now? I'd also like to question the opposition on how do they want to present the government? Do they want the government to be supportive of hoon driving, of reckless activity that takes millions of lives every year? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Do I have a speaker for the opposition? Sorry, I'm confused with opposition and government on this bill, given it's the opposition moving the bill, so I have to keep trying to remind myself. But is there I think we're up to an opposition speaker, if there is one. Okay.
Wait, yes. I'm confused, sorry. I'm very confused. Wait, what's going on?
We're still in open debate, so calling for anyone who hasn't already spoken who would like to speak at this point. Just please put your hand up if you are. I can't see any others, but I'm not sure if there are any. And I understand now we will call on the sponsor of the bill now to call for deliver their right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, the Honourable Member Gavelis. As you can see, this bill has taken a different and progressive approach to an issue that too many Victorians can relate to. We need to stop taking a conservative approach, as these conservative approaches have proven to not work. The opposition has stated the blunt fact that hooning is an issue that will never leave our society. We as the opposition aren't proposing to the government that we are accepting this behaviour. No, the government wants to slur our words. We instead are accepting this issue instead and going off to say that we need to take a different, more progressive approach. These areas will not tolerate dangerous driving and will do everything in their power to ensure that all parties are safe. Hence, that's why we have the board of the VRSHDO. The opposition also explains how these areas will make safer drivers and thus lead to a lower road toll. And furthermore, the trial program that will be conducted will further prove the effectiveness of this program. The opposition has pointed out the economic advantages of these rural areas that these areas desperately need, that they have suffered summer bushfires and COVID and continue to feel to experience these tough times. Finally, the opposition has emphasised how much money the government will save from spending in related hooning driving behaviour. The government has stated that why should we have hooners that go buy all this gear and then contradict themselves to say, well, they're not going to be doing these tests and we're making an area that's unsafe. The government needs to stop contradicting themselves and go, yes, we do need a regulated area, even if that means that these hooners have to go out of their way to buy other equipment. Hooners also, we understand that a lot of these hooners will be P-platers that don't have a lot of money. But from personal experience, as I have been to many of these events, including Calder Park Raceway, that a lot of these people don't do it because they just want to run away from the police. These are real enthusiasts who enjoy pushing the limits of their car. Once again, we need to put our naivety to the side and think of something different to combat this issue that too many people can relate to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the honourable member. The question is that the Controlled Areas for Recreational Hooning Bill 2021 now be read a second and a third time. All of those of that opinion say aye, and to the contrary, no. And I will pause now while you place your votes. The votes are in, and I think the noes have it. Well done, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone, and thank you, Danny. And that does conclude our debate. Really well done. I'll have a chat in a moment, but Danny, is there anything that you wanted to share with our parliamentarians?
Look, just to congratulate everybody. Very well argued on both sides and very passionately argued. I don't know whether people necessarily believed what they were saying on some of the issues, but they gave the impression they did, which is always good. This is very different, obviously, giving a speech on Zoom or in this sort of format either way compared to doing it actually in Parliament. And so it's hard to sort of compare what we do day to day. Clearly, obviously, people had prepared speeches mostly and delivered them, and they were very well argued. There were some good references from the government members to specific clauses, which is always good when you're looking at a bill and the particular issues that you're concerned about. There was the opposition, I think, through their team, built the case quite well, and each team member had some additional things to add or to rebut of the previous speakers. Most impressed that someone went back to an act from 1935. I'm not sure whether hoons were invented then, but well done. And I shouldn't probably get into the debate on the merits of the bill, but the argument for hoon tourism is one that I'd be interested to see people actually make the case for across the state. There are, of course, there's the spring car nats, or there used to be the spring car nats in Shepparton and summer nats in Canberra, which was basically a hoon festival. So there certainly was tourism involved for those. But the only other argument I'd add, and it's a slight criticism of the whole group, is that the interjections were very unoriginal, basically saying here or well said. Very disappointing, team. I'd like to see something much more witty than that, but I'm pleased to see that you're far better behaved than the actual parliamentarians are most of the time. So well done. If I could give tips, one thing. And literally, as I said, I've been in Parliament for 7 years now, and I don't think I've ever got a speech perfect. There are members of Parliament that prepare their speeches and read them, although other than for 90-second statements and your maiden speech or your inaugural speech, you're actually not meant to read. That's one of the rules of the House, is you're not meant to read a speech. Some do. We generally give a bit of leeway for newer members, but there are others that do the entire thing off the cuff. And as I said, I've been there 7 years now, and I'm only in the last year or so really learning that the more notes I have, the worse I am. And it's much easier, of course, if it's a bill or a topic that you're familiar with and you can speak of with some authority and with some experience of. But when getting up in Parliament and when getting up in public speaking, it is much better to literally just get up and speak from the heart. One thing, and along the same lines, advice I got years ago, you either read a speech or you do it off the cuff. If you try and do both, you end up messing it up because you then lose your spot. You're coming and going back from your notes back to being off the cuff. So certainly, as I say, I've found the best speeches are those that get up, they don't look at notes at all, they just go. And if they've got the experience, that's certainly a way of doing it. So, but anyway, that was great. Well done to everyone.
Thank you so much, Danny. We really appreciate your feedback and also your time and effort. As you said earlier, it is challenging that we have to be on Zoom. It's unfortunate that we can't be in Parliament House, but we're incredibly grateful for the time of people such as yourself that you're donating to our program, and it certainly is improving our experience and making us feel a little bit closer to Parliament than we would otherwise from our respective homes. I was wondering, Miora or Kyra, do you want to share anything?
I think you guys did such a great job. I was so proud of the debating and the fire that everyone had in their speeches. It was obvious that it was such a bill that everyone was kind of looking forward to refuting and sponsoring. You could really see that in the way that everyone was hyping up in the chat and the way that you delivered your speeches. My usual nitpicking of "don't say you" to the speaker didn't happen, which is great. I just thought it was a great debate.
Thanks, Miora. Kyra?
Echoing the same sentiments, and also back to what Danny said, the mentioning of legislation was really awesome. I really liked the deep analysis that we went into and the passion that was had in the speakers. I really feel like it was everyone's flowing into the natural state of public speaking, and even though it's over Zoom, it was really awesome to see. I think it was really, really, just an overall really positive and fierce debate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyra and Miora. I totally agree. Something I think is worth acknowledging is that on Youth Parliament, we always have bills that are a little bit more controversial maybe, or even just a little bit newer in their ideas. And I think that is something that's really special about Youth Parliament, because we are a group of people whose ideas